Zerg friends, it's me, Fenner from Fenner, and I'm going to cover this build that Life did at Dreamhack. It was one of my favorite games from Dreamhack. I really enjoyed this series because I stayed up all night to watch it. It was Life was the last Zerg, and there were a bunch of Terran guys left. It was like 1 Zerg and 4 Terran in like, well, that doesn't even make sense, but you get the idea. There's loads of Terran, and Life was there, the last Zerg standing, and I stayed up to watch him because I absolutely love Life. I love his play. And this build came up, so I'm going to cover this build. I want to cover the Damaga build at some point as well, because that was really cool. Some really cool games at Dreamhack. It was a great tournament, so you should go watch a couple of those games if you can. Now, I want to talk about this build quickly, because before we get into it, there's a few things that I just want to talk about. This build is a heavy metagame build, so we need to think about what the current metagame is in ZVT. The current metagame in ZVT, as you all probably know, is Mutiling Bane. Basically, the Zerg player gets up to 3 base as fast as possible. They get the upgrades before the lair. They start the lair. You know, maybe a couple of other upgrades, maybe Burrow, Overlord speed, Baneling speed, all that good stuff, and then they go into Mutiling Bane mid-game. They delay the hive for a bit, get a couple of drones on the 4th base, and they play with Creep Spread, Mutiling Bane, and just try and clear out the armies that are coming at them, because the standard metagame for Terran is to play super greedy, get a CC first on high ground or low ground, open Reaper, and then go to a 530 CC, land it, and start rallying Marine Mine across the map. So that's the standard metagame. It's good to know that, because that's really where you start to think about this build. So this build, it first of all opens with Roach. Roach openers right now aren't very popular. I think Hyun does them sometimes, but generally people just try and take the 3rd base with just a couple of Lings and the Queens. So Roach openers are not popular, which means that Life opens with Roaches, but it's just a defensive opener, but he fakes it to look like a Roach Bane, which is a popular opener right now. So this is heavy metagame stuff, guys. He opens with Roaches, he fakes a Roach Bane, so they might over-defend, build a couple of bunkers that they don't need, but in reality he's just taking the 3rd base, he's droning it up, he's getting his lair, he's getting no upgrades, and he gets the mutas out as soon as possible. So they maybe put some over-defensive, maybe built too much defense thinking it's a Roach Bane. And then the Mutalisks come. They see the Mutalisks. This is how a Terran player is thinking right now. He sees the Mutalisks and he's thinking, oh, okay, it's not a Roach Bane. He's got 3 base up. It's probably just going to be standard Mutiling Bane. Which is the perfectly acceptable thought process, because no one does anything else except Mutiling Bane right now. But what Life is doing behind this, he's just getting Roach speed, he's got no upgrades, and he's just pumping mass Roach. That's it. So he's getting harassed by the Mutalisks, he's expecting Mutiling Bane, and then mass Roach turns up at his doorstep. Life rams them in to the production line. You don't want to mess about at the 3rd base or the natural, because you need to get into that production line as soon as possible. You just basically need to do the damage. You have to win with this. You've got no upgrades. Even if you kill like a whole SCV line, I think you'll still be in a very bad situation if you don't win the game, because you'll have no upgrades. They'll be like halfway through 2-2 at that point. Yeah, you need to kill them. So Life goes straight into the production line, doesn't mess about, and he basically wins the game, because they're not expecting it. And that's the big metagame thing about this build, is you're faking it to look like a Mutiling Bane, but actually it's just a massive all-in. Like, there's a lot of all-ins right now where it's like big Roach speed Bane attacks off 3 base, the Damaga style where you get like 10 Overseers and you just fly them across and blow them up. But this all-in gets Mutalisks first, so they basically never expect it. So this is a really cool build, guys, and you know, let's just get straight into the build now. Yeah, let's do it. So first up, we want to send our first Overlord that starts over the map and have a look at his expansion, see what opening he's going for. Then a 9 supply, we want to go ahead and get an Overlord, and you can either send this to the 3rd base like I like to do, or you can send it around this side of the map to go to his main base for scouting later on. Now would be a good point to drone scout if you want to drone scout and be safe against those pesky 2-Rexes or proxy Reapers. In this game I'm not going to do it, but if you want to be safe, then you definitely should do that. Then at 150 minerals, we want to start sending our drone down to the natural to get that hatchery on 15 supply. Then at 16 supply, we go ahead and get that spawning pool. Then at 17 supply, we're going to go ahead and get another Overlord, and we're going to put him out onto the map, not too far away from our base, but we want to cover all the areas where Reapers and Hellions can be. So around these places are really good to get some coverage of where the Reapers and Hellions are going to be moving around so that you can keep track of them. And then once we're at 18 supply, we want to move a drone down to natural and rally everything to natural as well, since everything from this point will be 16 drone saturation on the main, so we want the drones going down to natural to, you know, even out that saturation. This one went a bit too early, so maybe a bit later, but yeah. And then as soon as the spawning pool finishes, we go ahead and get 2 queens, and depending on the opener, we get 2 to 4 lings. If it's a Reaper opener, we want 4 lings. If it's not a Reaper opener, then we just want the 1 pair of lings. And then 25 supply, we want to go ahead and get another Overlord. Once again, spread him out so you can get coverage of where the Hellions and Reapers are going to be moving around on the map. And then drone up to 28 supply. And at 28 supply, we want to go ahead and get a double queen from both of the hatches. Make the injects with these 2 queens, move them down to the front of the natural, ready to spread creep. We want to get another Overlord, spread it somewhere, and we want to start building a couple more drones. And as soon as we get to 36, 1 more drone, then we go ahead and take the gas at the natural. Make sure to spread creep with those queens as soon as possible, and as soon as these ones pop, then you want to go ahead and inject with those. Make sure you put the drones in the natural gas and get a Roach on at the same time. And now at this point we want to go ahead and build 3 Overlords, which will serve as Overlords for our Roaches. You can spread them out on the map if you want, or you can just keep them at home. And as soon as the Roach pops, we want to go get 6 to 8 Roaches, and also we go and get a 3rd base. You might have to wait a bit for the Roaches to pop to be able to get this 3rd base, but get it as soon as you can. Build 1 more Overlord, that'll make it nice and easy to drone, and then we want to start the lair. This is a super fast lair, and we want to start droning like crazy at this point. We want to get the 2 gases in the main. This is where it gets a bit more crazier, and we want to use these Roaches to either control the Hellions or push his Hellions back to his base to fake that Roach Bane. Make sure to keep spreading that creep and keep droning like crazy as well until we've got 16 on the natural, and we've also saturated the main and filled up these gases. Once we've got full saturation on the main base, get up 2 more Overlords and then rally everything down to the 3rd base. And as always, make sure to keep spreading that creep. This is pretty important in ZVT nowadays. Then as soon as the lair finishes, we want to go ahead and get that Spire, and we want to start droning that 3rd base. The first drones that come to this base, we want to take the gas as soon as possible, and you may need to build defense at this point. This is kind of where it gets a bit more dynamic. You'll have to start reacting to what they're doing. You might need a spine crawler, you might need a couple more Roaches to defend what they're doing, but in this scenario we're just going to go with the greediest possible route. And as I said, the first 2 drones that come over there are going to go ahead and make the gas. We want to get a queen at the 3rd base as soon as it finishes as well, and we're looking at this Spire finishing. As soon as it gets halfway, we want to get a couple more Overlords so we've got room to get the Mutalisks as fast as possible, and we want to start banking up gas at this point. Get a couple more drones. Once it's about halfway, you don't really want to be spending any more minerals, since you need everything to go into the Mutalisks. That's the big thing with this build. So as soon as the Spire finishes, we go ahead and just get mass Mutalisks, as many as we can, and then as soon as that's done, we go ahead and get the Roach speed straight after that, and we finish off saturating our 3rd base, and we build a massive bunch of Overlords, which will give us room to start spamming Roaches, and also get a Baneling nest. This is kind of just if your Roach attack doesn't work, you want a couple of Banelings in there. Just to be able to deal with the biomine. You want to send these Mutalisks straight to his base, and behind this we're just pumping mass Roach. So we're going to go straight to his base. You want to get the harassment on as soon as possible. You want to show him these Mutalisks. You want him to make him think, oh my god, he's building Mutaling Bane. He's going for the standard style, so we're going to show him these Mutalisks. Once he sees those, he might be like, oh, he's got a Mutaling Bane, but behind it we're building a bunch of Roaches, and as soon as that Roach speed kicks in, that's when we're going to go in for the attack. So we're harassing his main base. Obviously, if this was a real player, we'd be moving around a lot more. Make sure you keep up with the injects. You don't actually need a macro hatch when you pump in Roaches from 3 bases. We're just going to keep pumping those Roaches, and as you can see, already 170 supply. This is a lot of supply, and if they're not aware that this is happening, then obviously it's going to get pretty painful for them. So as soon as the roach speed finishes, let's have a look how many roaches we got. Oh, come on, roach speed. So 110. We move across the map. You probably actually want 2 overseers also, just so you can deal with those widow mines as well. And that's pretty much the build. At this point, you want to go straight into the main base, straight through the natural, because you need to kill them with this build. That is the point of this build. So the roaches will just run across the map, keep pumping roaches. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. You go straight into the main base, and if you do it well, it'll look something like this.
Look at how many roaches there are. SuperNova has absolutely nothing to deal with this. The Mutas sit on top of the barracks once again, and I'm afraid for SuperNova here, because when these roaches come in, they can't do anything. The SCVs, what are they going to do?
The manor hatchery gonna be going down for life, making fun of SuperNova here. Another one being made in GG.
He's gonna die! He's gonna die! He's gonna die! Oh yeah, just kill yourself for those.